Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All together, please. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Ganandana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stabitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Didati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sijivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padang Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karana Sindhu Dena Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapcha Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishvari Rishabhana Tuta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Paditanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, Bhagavad-Gita 251. Please repeat. Karmajam, Buddhi Yukta, Hi, Phalam, Taktva, Manishanaha, Janma, Bandha, Vinirmukta, Padam, Gachanti, Anamayam, Karmajam Buddhi Yuktahi, Phalam Takva Manishinaha, Janma Bandha, Vimnir Muktaha Padam Gachatani Namayam Karmajam Buddhi Yuktahi Phalam Takva Manishinaha Janma Bandha Vinir Muktaha Padam Gachanti Anamayam Karmajam Buddhi Yuktahi Phalam Taktva Manishinaha Janma Bandha Vinir Muktaha Padam Gachanti Namayam. Please repeat. Karmajam, due to fruitive activities. Buddhi Yuktaha, being engaged in devotional service. He, certainly. Phalam, results. Taktva, giving up. Minisaha, great sages or devotees. Janma Bandha, from the bondage of birth and death. Vimuktaha, liberated. Padam, position. Gachanti, they reach. Anamayam, without miseries. Translation, Srila Prabhupada. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries. by going back home, back to Godhead. Please repeat. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going home back to Godhead. Purport Srila Prabhupada. The liberated living entities belong to that place where there are no material miseries. The Bhagavatam 10:14-58 says, Samashrita ya pada palavam pavam mahat padam punya yasho marare pava budhir vatsa padam param padam 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 yad bi padam natesham. For one who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation and is famous as Mukunda, or the giver of Mukti, the ocean of material world is like the water contained in a calf's footprint. Param padam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger in every step of life. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place, where there are dangers at every step. Out of ignorance only, less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, thinking that the resultant actions will make them happy. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, namely birth, death, old age, and diseases, are present everywhere within the material world. But one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets, where there is neither material, miserable life, nor the influence of time and death. To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are on the same level is to be understood in darkness, and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. He becomes a Lord himself, and thus paves the way for the repetition of birth and death. But one who, understanding that his position is to serve, transfers himself to the service of the Lord, at once becomes eligible for Vaikuntha Loka. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, Mukam karochi vachalam pangam laite girim yad kripa tamaham vande Sri Gurun dinatarinam karmajam buddhi yoktahi phalam takva manishinaha janma bhanda vinirmuktaha padam gachanti anamayam. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going home back to Godhead. So, you see that first sentence there. in the purport. The liberated living entities belong to that place where there are no material miseries. Right, so this is the brilliance of Srila Prabhupada, to point out things so clearly. This is the particular genius of Prabhupada, to present the Vedic conclusion with such clarity. Liberated living entities, they belong to that place where there are no material miseries. So, what is liberation? That is there in the Bhagavatam, second canto. Muktir hitavam yata rupam swarupena avavashtitihi. That mukti, liberation from the material world, means to be situated in your swarup, in your spiritual identity, swarup, own form. Prabhupada touches upon it there in the latter part of the purport, that some people, they consider, I am a lord of this world, I'm equivalent to Krishna. This is the pollution of Mayavad. The Mayavadis consider that there is some kind of monistic energy that is the ultimate destination. They do not understand that beyond the Brahmajyoti is the form of Krishna. Haranmayena patraina satyasya pahitam mukam. In the Upanishad, Isopanishad, the person is praying to Krishna, please remove your Brahman effulgence so that I can see your form of bliss. So liberation, merging into the Brahman effulgence, even that is a temporary thing, because it cannot satisfy the soul. Krishna is Leela Mayi. He engages in Leela, pastimes, activities. He has form and personality, right? You're all learned devotees. You know that Krishna is realized Nam Rupa Guna Leela. Nam means the name of Krishna. By chanting, we realize the presence of Krishna in the name of Krishna. And then, naturally, by chanting the name of Krishna, or the chanting of anyone we can understand, if I say mother to you, you will think the form of mother, will you not? So the name carries the potency of the form. So that is particularly true in the spiritual atmosphere. It is the absolute atmosphere. So Krishna's name, manifest in the material world, has the potency to reveal the form of Krishna within the consciousness of the living entity. And then, as you remember your mother, you remember her qualities. Oh, she was short-tempered. Oh, she was a good cook. So on and so forth. She couldn't make chapatis, but her puris were good. So, guna, qualities. So, once the form is realized, then we realize the qualities of Krishna. They are 6 in number, and they are related to his form. Not 6 in number, but they're categorized in that way. 6 opulences, 6 qualities. Of course, Ananta Shakti, Krishna's qualities are unlimited in depth and variety. But for our approach to Krishna, the acharyas have categorized them into 6 opulences. The opulence of beauty, that is related to the face of Krishna. And then the opulence of renunciation is related to the left arm of Krishna, feminine side, renunciation. And then the virya, or the Shakti, the power, energy of Krishna, is related to the right hand, and the right arm rather. And then the torso represents the opulence of Krishna, because as it says there in the same Upanishad, everything is controlled and owned by the Lord. Om Purnam, Ishavasya idam sarvam yat kinchat jagadam jagat. Everything is controlled and owned. We may claim this and that as ours, and we may stake out, I'm the proprietor. Why do we, in the material world? Because in the material world people are trying to imitate Krishna. Oh, I am the controller. And why do I'm the proprietor. And therefore I have a right to control, and therefore I have a right to enjoy. But Krishna explains, though, that in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadi asya yata, everything emanates from Krishna. So he is the only true person who can claim ownership of everything. We are the emanation from Krishna. Mavaivamsa jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana. That the living entity, Krishna says, Mavai Vamsa, my angsa. They're my part and parcels. Why? Because they've emanated from Krishna. So there's that verse, Prabhupada quotes it many times, that Krishna's energies that he manifests, they can be divided into 3. The Chit Shakti, spiritual energy, the Achit Shakti, which is the shadow. It is the secondary form of the spiritual energy, but we call it material because it has the lower quality, and it induces, as Prabhupada mentions here, the ignorance. That means to forget the origin or the personality or the person, the supreme person from which that material energy has emanated. And the third category is the Jiva Shakti. So we are the Jiva Shakti. Vavaivamsa Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. And we are Angsa eternally. So that is the opulences of Krishna. The opulence there is the torso. And then he stands on 2 limbs. The left limb is fame. Fame is considered feminine opulence, and so left side. And then he stands on knowledge, meaning that cognizance, that Krishna knows everything. He is fully aware of everything. Of course, he deputes that to his Vishnu expansions. And they, if you like, figuratively speaking, they carry out all functions of maintenance of the creation. And then Krishna is free, if you like, to enter into Leela, in forgetfulness of his role as the Supreme Lord. So mukti, and especially given by Lord Chaitanya, is to relate to that Supreme Lord in your true spiritual form, Swarup. There's a letter to Rupanuga. You can look it up in the folio. 8th of August, 1972. And apparently, Rupanuga has asked Prabhupada in the addressing letter, what about the Swarup, Prabhupada? What is it? Where is it coming from? So I paraphrase, but without addition or subtraction. And Prabhupada in that letter, he says, there is Swarup always, but it is dormant. It develops according to the desire of the living entity. Just like the tree is present within the seed, so the Swarup develops from the beej of the soul. Swarup. Now the deviation in Vaishnavism is they consider that this Swarup which develops is an addition to the soul. You understand? In the same way. And that is the deviation behind Sili Pranali or Siddha Pranali. The Guru puts himself in the position of Bhagwan and says, I am giving you Swarup. Really? No. Krishna is Satchidananda Vigraha. Sat, eternal, cognizant, Chit, full of Ananda, and Vigraha means form and personality. So some of these people, they open institutes in the name of the Goswamis, and they, in a bizarre way, they propagate that the jiva is just Sat, or just Sat and Chit. But in the Gita, Krishna himself says, Apariyamitas pramyam prakritim vidi me param, that the jiva is parapakriti, the sun and the spark of the sun, the photon, the mountain of gold and the piece of gold. The gold, the particle of gold, has all the qualities of the mountain of gold. The drop of water has all the qualities of the ocean of water. And it is it contradicts Shastra to say, the jiva is a dependent particle, just Sat. This is the pollution of the Mayavadi. He's just Sat, therefore his home is in the Brahman. He's just Chit, Sat and Chit. He has no Anand. But if you read, and therefore he has no Rupa. But if you read Brihad Bhagavatamrita, at the end of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Jiva Swarupasya Satchitananda. This is the statement of Sanatana Goswami. So this is all bogus thing. And it is on this point that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta fought the Babajis. They were making good money with their Diksha Patras and their Sili Pranali, telling people, you are devoid of a form, you are devoid of Anand, but by meditating, by joining me in my line of Diksha Patras, then you will develop all this. So this is material conception, what to speak of impersonal conception of the soul. because material world, this form, this material body, is an addition to the soul, is it not? It's a covering. So the idea that when we go to the spiritual world, they even have a peculiar idea that in the spiritual world there's all sorts of statues. And when the soul goes to the spiritual world, he goes into one of those statues and activates it. So this conception is the material conception. I have a material body added to my soul here, and then when I go to the spiritual world, I'll have another body added to me there. This is actually, I did research on it a few years back, many years back, and it is a misinterpretation of verses 10 and 11 in the Sandarbhas. I think it's the Bhakti Sandarbha. There's a verse there in Sanskrit, and it mentions Vaikunthasya Murti. So it's saying, this has been interpreted to mean that there are murtis in the spirit, in Vaikuntha, which the liberated soul enters and activates. So somewhere in the spiritual world, according to this speculation, there's a big warehouse, a big stock of murtis, waiting for all the billions of spirit souls that will be liberated by Lord Chaitanya. But we don't hear anything of that in the Bhagavatam, in the Gita. It is just a misinterpretation of a few words in the Sandarbhas. Swarup means this. And if you want to research this more, you can look in the Vedanta Sutra, the commentary of Baladev Vidyabhushan, the fourth adaya. In the Vedanta Sutra is in 4 adayas, 4 corners or 4 sections or 4 chapters. The first one is Sambandha. The second adaya is Bhakti. Abhideya, how to perform Bhakti. The third adaya is Prayojan Tattva, discussed. And the fourth adaya is Mukti. The discussion is Mukti. So the adaya are subdivided into padas. So in the fourth pada of the fourth adya, verses 1 to 3, this very question is brought up. Is the soul, when he's liberated, given, because there is a verse there from the Upanishads, Swarupena avavashnapate, that the liberated soul, in the condition of liberation, he attains his Swarup. So the question is asked, this word attained, does it mean that he attains a body that is external to his self? Or is that spiritual body a manifestation, just in the same way, as Prabhupada explains it, as a tree is there within the seed? Within the banyan tree seed, everything for the banyan tree is there in minute form, but it expands in the right conditions. So that question is asked in the dialectic, and it is very clearly stated by Baladev Vidyabhushan that though that he discusses first Swarup, own form, that the form of the living entity is his own form, Swarup. It is intrinsic to the soul. However, in the dormant state of the living entity, just like the seed is dormant, the tree is dormant or the plant is dormant within the seed, but under the right conditions it flourishes and manifests its true nature. But there's no money in that, telling that to a disciple. There's no handle on the disciple. It is dependent upon me what your Swarup is. I'm giving you Swarup, and you're giving me a lot of praise and adoration, and especially Dhan. So, this is what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta fought against. And then the other deviation that they have is that this misled so-called disciple, he's told to meditate on his Swarup. And there is a story in ISKCON, you may not know, that some deviant disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they went to these so-called, well, they are devotees, but they're misled, these people, and they were told, one devotee, he came in a room and there was a sannyasi there, and on the edge of the sofa, you know, the arm of the sofa, the devotee was perched. So he asked that sannyasi, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm practicing my Swarup. I went to one so-called Swami, and he told me that my form was a peacock. So I'm perching on the sofa, practicing my Swarup." And from this idea, this is where you get the Shaki Bedis. If you look closely around Vrindavan, you'll get men with 5 o'clock shadow, but dressed as gopis, right? Because they're practicing their Swarup as a gopi. And they will dance in front of the deity in a travesty of female dance because they're trying to attract Krishna. These things are discussed in the purports in the early part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But this is a bogus thing, because throughout, what does Krishna say, the most confidential knowledge? He says, "Manmana, you meditate upon me." He doesn't say meditate upon your Swarup, meditate upon yourself. That is the material world, is it not? We're self-motivated. We want to satisfy our own thing. We think that by meditating on our desires and fulfilling them, that this will be satisfaction. But in spiritual life, clearly stated by Krishna, the most confidential knowledge, manmana, you meditate upon me, on my lotus feet. You meditate upon my name. And then, as you realize Krishna, Nam Rupa Guna Lila, then you will automatically understand your relationship with Krishna. Just in the same way, when the sun comes up, when Krishna is realized within the consciousness by the grace of Guru and himself ultimately, then you see the sunlight and then you see yourself. And unless you realize Krishna, how can you realize your relationship with Krishna? Right? How can you have a relationship with your wife if you don't have a wife? Huh? But if you have a wife, you can have a relationship with the wife. But you don't have any realization of Krishna, you cannot have any realization of your relationship to Krishna. So Shastra, logic, argument, statements of bona fide acharyas, they throw out this. But because of this, the Kasko Swamis and the deviant Babajis, they made plans to kill Bhaktisiddhanta because they're making good business. So, of course they failed. He's protected by Krishna. So we should understand this deviation when we go to Radhakund and the hangouts of the this deviation. But at the same time, we should give respect. Prabhupada says in a purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita at the beginning, he explains many of these deviations, and he says, but still we should respect them because they are devotees, but they are misdirected. So they're on the path, but they have been given apasiddhanta. And the sublime qualities of Lord Chaitanya, mercy, that mercy of the Guru and Krishna and the Vaishnava, that is the essential element in attaining your spiritual relationship. It is not a relationship realized through a certain mechanical process, but it is done by realizing Krishna. And in Kali Yuga, how do we realize Krishna? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, that is there in the first sloka of Shishtastikam. What is the first stage? Jetodapana marjanam. First the mind will be purified of material conception, just like the mirror is cleansed. And then Bhavamahad Nivagni Nivapanam. Then the fire of material life, samsara dava, we say, this cycle of birth and death, this goes down. Bhavamahad, it becomes cool. Because when the mind is purified, then the material chasing, ignorance, just like it is stated here, the ignorance of the material world. Prabhupada said, right at the beginning, we don't belong, the liberated soul, it doesn't belong to a miserable life, but it's caused by ignorance of the Supreme Lord. Bhakti means to fix the mind upon the Supreme Lord. Material life means to forget the Supreme Lord. And then you become bound by prakriti, stani kashati. You become bound by the reactions in the material world. Takva. But if you have knowledge, just like Ram Roy said to me a week ago, he quoted one sloka, the doubts that have arisen within your mind, O Arjuna, should be slashed with the weapon of knowledge. So, once the material fire of lust, anger and greed becomes placated, then Sreira Chandrika Vitarinam, then this is the waxing moon of good fortune. And then what comes next? Vidya Vadu Jivanam. The natural cognizance, the natural knowledge of the soul, because we are the same quality as Krishna. So when the material conditioning is placated and we hear the spiritual message, the Bhagavatam, Krishna's words, we hear the words of the Acharyas, then we realize. So then we are situated in knowledge, and then Anandam Buddhivardhanam. We come to the position where we actually get Namruchi, we get Bhava, we get Ashakti, we taste the name, and then we don't want to stop. We're in the purified condition. And then, as it is stated in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, once one attains Bhava platform, then Ashakti Bhava, then at that stage, at the stage of Ananda, real realization of Krishna is attained. That's very clearly stated in Prabhupada's summary study. And then Anandam Buddhivardhanam Patibam. Then you attain Krishna. You attain your relationship by... So this sublime, simple and direct method, just like Prabhupada's brilliance of putting everything so clearly and to the point, sometimes this foolish rascals, they say, oh, Prabhupada just taking ABC. But if you know ABC, then you know every word in the dictionary. But if you don't know ABC, if you have apasiddhanta, then you cannot spell any word. You cannot understand anything. If the foundation is not strong, then the house will be wobbling like a Shaki Bedi. So this is a very important point. And then who can say that? Prabhupada presented the Srimad Bhagavatam. Is that ABC? These foolish people that say this, they've never read Prabhupada's books, and they're dismissing the Srimad Bhagavatam. Kalo nasta dvisam edvasha paranaka dunodita. Is the Chaitanya Charitamrita, is that basic stuff? Sanatan Shiksha. So these fools and rascals, because of their envy and because they know the history of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disparagement of the Babaji and Kasko Swami deviations, they make war. And in this way they make themselves very unfortunate because of aparad. Instead of appreciating the wonderful work of the Acharya, they become envious, which means that they have not become purified. If you remember the class on Saturday, what did the Avadut Brahman, it's been in I gave that class by grace of Krishna, and he said, sometimes people praise and blame me, but I don't care. I remain their well-wisher. So this is a very wonderful instruction, is it not? Because we meet people in the material world that are antagonistic, and then some people are praising us and some of this. How should we relate to this material world? Sometimes we hear somebody singing the kirtan and he can't sing in tune, and we think, oh my God, what does Krishna think of that? But we should remain the well-wisher of everyone in any circumstance. And then we correspond with the attitude of Krishna, because that is Krishna. He is the well-wisher of all living entities. We shouldn't go to war. We should learn from that instruction of the Avadut there mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Be the well-wisher of everyone, but at the same time be realized and fixed in our understanding of Siddhanta. Or else we will, in the period of sadhana, we'll be knocked down from the Brahman platform, from the spiritual platform. Because there's that verse, 1854, Brahmabhuta prasanadmana soshati nakangsa samasavesha bhuteshu, sees everyone equally. Mad bhaktim labate param. So from that platform of Brahmabhuta, the beginning platform, Prabhupada alludes to that in his purport. From that platform of purity, then we can develop Ananda, then we can develop understanding of Krishna, and then our relationship to Krishna will manifest automatically. Because as you realize Krishna, you're realizing your relationship to Krishna. Of course, there are, and if you like, and Prabhupada encourages everyone to read Jaiva Dharma. And if you read Jaiva Dharma in the later stages, it will explain there in a perfect way Rasa Tattva. Rasa Tattva is the science of relationship with Krishna. So at the beginning, Sambandha Tattva, Abhidaya Tattva, Prayojan Tattva. And then as we become more developed spiritually, we can study Rasa Tattva, particularly the Jaiva Dharma, is a brilliant summary by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And then we can understand the nature of the spiritual world and relationship with Krishna and be guided properly. So the Swarup is there. It is there. Everything is in our hands. Now mention here, Prabhupada mentions, right? Free themselves from the results of work in the material world. Taktva phalam. So on that path, and in the word for word, it means the effect of pious. There are 4 anarthas the sadhaka has to understand. This is Sambandha Tattva. To reach that platform of Nishta and Nam Ruchi. And they are also enunciated in the Jaiva Dharma. First one is Hridabalyam. Hridabalyam means weakness of heart, Hrida, or in lack of sincerity, or weakness of application. One should be fired up, one should be enthusiastic. But the problem of the neophyte is that because he's a neophyte, he's not fired up. So it's a catch-22. So Bhakti-Vinod in Chaitanya Shikshamrita, he explains that whatever devotion you have, you pray to Krishna for more devotion. Just like a businessman. With whatever money he's got, he invests that in his business and he makes a profit. And then with that greater amount, he reinvests it and gets a greater profit. So Hridabalya means that. That's why Vaidhi Bhakti of the basics, regulated devotion, chanting, so on and so forth, is very important. Then the other is aparad. There is Nam aparad, Seva aparad, Dham aparad, and Vaishnav aparad, this also. But this is offences, but of course we should be very careful to avoid offences by maintaining this attitude of always being the well-wisher. But it sounds very daunting, aparad. But the difference between Nama aparad and Namabhas is that the sincere devotee, his offences are not considered highly because he's sincere in his approach, right? Just like when you go to the music school, as long as you keep practicing, you'll stop hitting bad notes on the piano. Now if somebody says, oh, I don't want to engage in devotional service because there's so many offenses, that's just like saying, I'm not going to practice the piano because I can't play it properly. That means you're looking for an excuse. And then the other is, aparad is also one section is mentioned here in the verse, and Prabhupada expands it in the word for word. It is the infection of papa and punya. Somebody who's got a lot of punya, he may be jolly, and he may materially jolly, and he may try to enjoy devotional service in an enjoying mood instead of developing seva bhav. Somebody who's miserable, who's a papi, he may become envious of the Vaishnavas. He may be depressed in attitude, and this will affect his Hridabalya. So what's that, fourth one? Oh yes, and the fourth is apasiddhanta, not understanding the process. If you're wrongly instructed, or you don't study the words of the acharyas, then you will tend to fill in the gaps about Krishna and the process of bhakti with mental speculation. And then you may start wearing a sari and thinking I'm practicing my swarup, or purchasing on the, squatting on the sofa and thinking I'm going to be a peacock in the spiritual world, or swinging from a tree and thinking I'm going to be a monkey. So be very. So that is the Vijavadu Jivanam. Once your material fire is reduced, then your consciousness in that purified state is able to grasp Siddhanta, and that will lead you to Ananda. So this is a few points on today's verse. Yes, Buddhi, yes. But there again, Prabhupada at the end, and this is very important. Devotional service to the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. So when we're in the period of sadhana, just like it says there in the Chaturshloki, Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajitam Pritipurvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenamam Apiyantite. So the middle section of attaining Krishna is that Buddhi Yoga. And that means that you have Siddhanta. You've heard from the Shastra. You've heard from the Acharyas. You've heard from the sadhus. You've contemplated the spiritual knowledge. Krishna says, one who studies this conversation worships me with his intelligence. So that is the transitional point to awakening the Swarup. And then, as Krishna says here, he becomes free from the cycle of birth and death and attains the state beyond all miseries by going back home, back to Godhead. Now, won't that be nice? Right? So try to fix that. I think it was it you, Ram Roy, that was telling me the other day that this phrase, back home, back to Godhead, was actually given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta?
I wasn't saying that.
No. Yeah, but it is correct. It is correct.
The motto of the Gaudiya Math is to go back to God.
Yes. So, and that is a state beyond all miseries. And you realize that by the grace of Maya Devi. Her job is to discourage your material enjoyment. You can read Navadvip Mahatmya by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Maya Devi approaches Lord Chaitanya, I think it's in Simantadvip, and she says, Maya Devi says, oh, I'm very forlorn, Lord Chaitanya. Or Nityananda, wasn't it? It was Nityananda. All the Vaishnavas are dismissing me, oh Maya Devi, and I'm not getting their association. And my life is a terrible loss. And so, Lord Chaitanya Nityananda, they explained to Maya Devi, don't lament. You're a direct expansion of Srimati Radharani herself. And your job is to discourage people from remaining in the material world. To teach them that this is not your real home. And that is your grace. And then when somebody becomes a sadhaka, you encourage them not to fall back into the Maya Shakti again. You push them towards Krishna by giving them a nudge, these material miseries. But that is learning the hard way. So anyway, but Maya Devi, after hearing that her position was glorious, then she was alleviated in heart. And she could see that her position was very wonderful. But we shouldn't learn the hard way. We should, especially now Adhik Mas is coming, we should clear the table so that during Adhik Mas, Purushottam-math, I think it starts 16th of May, so that we can really get into the basics and chanting and absorb ourselves in the words of the Acharyas and the Shastra without any distractions. Adhik Mas is, they say, more powerful than Kartik. So, just like the Christmas sales, things are going cheap. So bhakti is very freely given with just a small investment in Adhik Mas. So now leading up to Adhik Mas, clear your clutter of things to do and make sure you have lots of time to study Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Read Chaitanya Bhagavat, that's a wonderful book. Study the words, encouraged by Prabhupada, Jaiva Dharma. And then you're investing your bhakti in the stock market when the market is booming. Right? Of course, there's no loss or diminution in bhakti. But you want to invest your energies at a good time, that's Purushottam Mas. Sadhu Sangha, Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So if there's any question, we'll try or any comment.
So the mistake of the Saki Beki. What would be the Prema Bhakti Chandrika Narottam Das Thakur?
That's a great book also, short book, Prem Bhakti Chandrika.
Narottam Das Thakur says that Sadhana Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti are the same. Sadhana Bhakti is when Raganuga Bhakti is not fully ripened and matured yet. So these deviant persons take to material speculation. So could you describe the symptoms of one who is actually with realization?
Well, that's Krishna's question in verse 54, isn't it? You know? Yeah, he says here, Arjuna said, Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk? You see? And then if you look at 554, it's very interesting how Krishna does it. 554. Then Krishna answers that question with the same verse number. 554. Or is it 50? Huh? Is it 4? Oh, it's 554. Oh. Then Krishna gives that. Oh yes. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, samadhi. So that's the answer that you're looking for. Enjoying the pleasure within. He's realized in his relationship with Krishna. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. Right? That's the answer. You see, this contents of Gita summarized means that the later part here, this is a very important part of chapter 2, because it gives all these instructions on yoga, bhakti-yoga. But there it is in 522. The liberated soul has no interest in the good and bad of the external world. He concentrates on Krishna in the heart because of loving attraction. So the sadhaka's position is that he is trying to cultivate that. So bhakti is divided into two, sadhana bhakti and bhava bhakti. And then sadhana bhakti is divided into vaidhi bhakti, following rules and regulations, practicing regularly. And within that framework, one should cultivate raga, means attraction. That's the relation of vaidhi and rag. And then Ra, and then the second stage is Bhava Bhakti, which is further subdivided into Bhava and Prem Bhakti. So when you become attracted, the next stage is you become Bhava or Ashakti. You become attached. So when you're cultivating in sadhana attraction to Krishna by association with Vaishnavas, studying the Shastra nicely, you're cultivating attraction, you're realizing Krishna. But then you become attached, Ashakti. That leads to Bhava. That condenses to Prem. Do you understand? So the rules and regulations, the basic thing is very important, because without that you can't get attraction. Because if you're not following 4 regulative principles and chanting nicely and studying the Siddhanta, that means you're becoming attracted to the Maya Shakti. Right? You'll either go into the spiritual attraction or the material attraction. So that is the tough part of bhakti. You have to regulate yourself. You regulate your chanting. You regulate your study of Shastra. And that will lead to attraction. Attachment. Rag bhakti and then rati. That's it. That's the word, Sanskrit word. Raga means attraction. Then rati means attachment. Just like when you're learning to play the mridanga, it might hurt your finger or two, but you're attracted to learning it. But then you become attached to playing the mridanga and you want to play. Right? So that's the shifting over point. So that is easily attained if you know the science and you're avoiding offenses and you're keeping this attitude of being well-wisher. Then Krishna will be very merciful, because that's him. We're all sustained, materialist and spiritualist, on the mercy of Krishna. Sutri mani gana iva. Everything is resting upon me. Does that answer your question? Okay, we'll finish at this point. Thank you for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada Srimad Bhagavatam Sadhu Sangha Ki Jai.